Morning, everyone. Do you know what? It's all going mental. We're going to be discussing today the latest collapse of our infrastructure, the prison system. But I do just have to point out some massive breaking news. We're not going to talk about it yet, though. So it's a bit... And I can't not talk about it right now, but I'm just going to do it really quickly. An MP from the SNP has defected to the Conservative Party. Right? Apparently, it's because of bullying in the SNP. And okay, you can get bullying in any party. Okay, fine. Who defects to the Conservatives because you're worried about bullying? But anyway, we may come back to that, but we're going to talk about the prison system first. Oh, J Dash straight in there for 99 super chat. Thank you very much. Let's send all the prisoners on a boat to Rwanda. Well, yeah, that is not going to occur there, is it? But there's several things to say here. So first of all, what is the news for those who have missed it? This was breaking yesterday. It is that our prisons have been overcrowded for a very long time, and that has been known, and it's been well known in the media. Labour have made a big song and dance about it. It's been known. Now it's got to the point where it's not just overcrowded. In other words, it's not just that there are more prisoners in the prisons than there should be. It is that they are now completely full. It's like there's not even room in the broom cupboard. So the order has gone out to senior judges. If you're sentencing, so people have been convicted, and the ones in the news are things like burglaries and rapes, but that's just an example of the sort of crimes because they're reporting on those because they know those are the very serious crimes that the public will, focus in on. And judges have been told you can't sentence these people to jail, to which the judges go, well, what do we do? What do we do? So what they have to do is it's not that they're not going to go to jail, by the way. The Daily Express today suggested they're just going to go free. It's a bit of a lie. The Daily Express does tend to tell lies. Oh, Dice Danton, £20 super chat. Thank you very much. Starting Phil's new suit fund. No, I don't need a new suit. I only wore that one because I wasn't going to get any much use out of it. I don't wear suits. But what's it now? So what's going to happen is these people, and it is still serious, they're going to have their sentencing deferred while they release other prisoners. So two things are going to happen here. So let's take the example of a convicted rapist. If they're due to be sentenced, say today, the judge can't do that because there's no room. There's no prison to send them to, right? So what do? They have to keep them on bail. So they're convicted. They're going to go to jail. But as of today, they're walking the streets where their victim could come across them again, right? Now, I suppose in reality, you could at least sentence them to remain in the home or something like that, but that's not necessarily always practical if they have no one else to get their stuff for them. So they are, at this moment, walking the streets when they should be in prison, while they get existing prisoners and release them early. So there's a plan from ministers, so the government are doing this, plan them early. Now, here's where it gets really weird. Because the Tories, whenever they talk about law and order, what's the only thing they ever mention? Tougher sentences. Nothing else. Oh, should we tackle the root causes of crime? No. They're just wrong-uns. We just put them in prison. Well, we put them in prison for longer. Okay. Do you think by not tackling the root causes of crime and by just putting people in prison for longer, it means we might need more prisons building? We need more capacity? No, we'll just carry on with the same capacity. We'll just increase sentences and we'll just do nothing about the root causes of crime and we'll keep our prison system as it is. We're not going to build more prisons. So you can see where this goes. I'll catch up with a few more comments actually before I go on to the next bit, because the next bit's quite incredible. GOJ saying prisons really are knackered. I'm an IMB member, same organisation that published a report on Wandsworth this week. Mismanagement, underinvestment, understaffed, prisoners and staff in danger. Well, the thing is as well, you have, like, you know, if you contrast it with Finland. Like if you showed the prison system in Finland on like the Daily Mail, all the readers go, "Ooh, that looks life of luxury, life of luxury." Yeah, well, I'll tell you what happens in Finland is they focus on rehabilitation in prisons, not treating them like animals, and they have very, very low reoffending rates. Whereas in this country, you cram them in. I mean, prisons, even if they were overcrowded, are not doing any good for them. There might be some classes they can go to, a bit of education, but in terms of like developing their mental health, it's really bad. It's like the worst possible environment. But then you overcrowd it as well, so the mental health suffers more. So then they go out. Not only are they likely to reoffend, but they're likely to commit more serious crimes because you've now destroyed their head. But there we go. Ryan Brown, 4.99 super chat. Thank you very much. So SNP are tartan Tories. No, I don't think they'd appreciate that. Obviously, there are some in the SNP who are slightly on the right. I mean, we know in the SNP leadership contest that Hamza Yusuf was the one on the left, but like 18 to 90% of SNP supporters are on the left. But it's not all of them, because remember, the unifying feature of the SNP is Scottish independence. It's not domestic politics, but of course they do have domestic politics. But anyway. But yeah, so going on to the next bit then. So Tom Tugendhat. Now, he's not the Justice Secretary, right? That's, I always forget his name. Something Chalk, isn't it? Do you know what? Because he's such a normal fella, I keep forgetting his name. He don't get into any scrapes. And of course, it's not his fault that the prisons are like this. It's more likely Dominic Raab's fault, because he was the Justice Secretary for a good chunk of time. And who was the Justice Secretary for Raab? I can't remember now. But anyway, Tom Tugendhat is not the Justice Secretary. But he is in Cabinet. Now, it was put to him yesterday, I think it might have been on Sky, and it was put to him that senior judges are now being told to defer sentencing because prisons are full. His response to that was, "That's new on me." That's what he said. "I don't know about this." And you think to yourself, this is another case of a thick Tory saying something that they think is a defence, and actually they're attacking their own party. Because if he as a cabinet minister didn't know about this thing, it means he's claiming two things. First of all, when Labour were warning about this, and when it's been in the mainstream media months ago, he's saying he doesn't keep himself informed about serious issues going on in this country as a cabinet minister. Doesn't matter that he's a cabinet minister for something else. He's like the veterans minister, right? He's not even a Secretary of State, but he is in cabinet. So it means that, first of all, a cabinet minister doesn't think it's worth his while to keep himself appraised of what's going on in the country. That's not a good defence. Second, he's saying that it wasn't discussed in cabinet. It wasn't discussed in full cabinet. But this is really serious. In August, the mainstream media was saying that the prison population is going to outstrip capacity by November. Well, actually, it's October. It's happened early. But that's a serious crisis. That is a crisis. Are you telling me that full cabinet did not discuss this? Because that is also now saying the Conservative government are incompetent, because that should have been discussed. But anyway, Steve Kirk, £10 super chat. Thank you very much. Just adding a bit more to Phil's pink suit from Savile Row Fund. I mean, again, this is like, I'm afraid, the last thing that is going to occur. But anyway, sounds like what they were saying in The Wire, trying to stop drugs in Baltimore by going after drug addicts and dealers instead of going after the source. But yeah, I mean, the Conservatives don't have a holistic approach to anything, because they don't want, I keep saying this, and I'll keep saying it, they don't want to govern. They are the only major political party in this country, in other words, the only political party that ever gets any sort of power, who don't want that power. They don't want to govern. Well, they want the power, but they only want it to stop other people using it. That's it. They only want it to stop other seat blockers. And I keep saying this. They don't want to govern. So they never have a top and tail approach to anything. It's something like dealing with crime in the country. You have to tackle the root causes. Why did certain groups commit these crimes? Deal with that. With a lot of people disconnect from society, right? We need to connect these people in with society. They need to get the benefit from society. Whatever it is, there's lots of different reasons. And some people are actually just wrong and they are likely to just end up committing crimes. But with a lot of people, there are things you can do to alleviate it. So you reduce the total number of people who are likely to commit crimes and likely to commit serious crimes. So then you go, okay, but then there's still going to be people committing crimes. What do we do? Well, prevention then. So that's where your policing comes in. What's the Tory solution? Oh, let's chop 21,000 experienced police officers from the numbers then. That was their response. The fact that they try and claim they've built it back up again now, even though it's still fewer officers per capita, but they're now inexperienced and many of them unsuitable. They were people who failed the application process, but they brought them back just to make the numbers up. So basically, earlier this year or last year, whenever it was, when the Tories were trying to boost their police numbers, you know, Ronnie Biggs could have been made a police officer at that time. They would have let anyone in just to get the numbers up. So then the next thing is, okay, so now you've got a situation where, you know, someone's going to commit a crime. You've tried to deal with the root causes. That hasn't helped. You've tried to prevent it. You know, you've built up policing. That hasn't worked as well. So the next thing is they're now going to have to go through the criminal prosecution service. So you need, but our charge rates are really low. I mean, you take something like rape, 1.5% charge rate. Conviction rate quite high compared to other serious crimes because it's so hard to get through the system. The charge rate is really low. Often it takes years to come to court anyway, which means the victim's going through a terrible time. So there's no support for the potential victims because we don't know that they are victims until there's a conviction. But, you know, there's no support for the potential victims. Courts have been closed down, so we can't get cases heard quickly enough. So there's another failure. And then when you've gone through all that and you've got someone now convicted and they need to be imprisoned, we don't have the prisons. So at every level, at every stage, the Conservatives have done nothing. They haven't tackled the root causes of crimes. They chopped police numbers. They've cut courts and, you know, all of the costs of running a court system. And they haven't built up prison. They haven't even maintained really prison capacity because lots of prisons are sort of dilapidated now. What was the recent report? 10% of prisons are just completely unfit for purpose now. 10%. And they're all, well, when we say full, we don't mean full. We mean they were full years ago. What we mean is it's now to the point where you cannot physically put a prisoner in there because they're all overcrowded. But you cannot physically put a prisoner in there now. It's like, well, can't we put them under the pool table? No, we've got someone under there already. Jerry's under there. Anyway, catch up with some comments. A holistic approach will be to sort out poverty, which will reduce crime by fair amount. Well, that is part of tackling the root cause of crime, isn't it? Identifying start off with the major reasons why people commit certain crimes and deal with that. Poverty is at the root of an awful lot of crime, not all of it. Some things is like, for example, kids having, you know, not having a decent enough upbringing. Like, you can't do a lot about the parents, but you can do a lot about, for example, the school system identifying problems. You know, so if kids have like they're neglected or abused as children, then inevitably they're going to end up with their heads wrecked, which could end up leading to crime. Doesn't always, but it could do. Simon asking, how's the feet? Absolutely wrecked, mate. So yeah, for those who don't know, I went to Liverpool. I went in some very unsuitable boots. I now have pretty much all the skin missing off the backs of my heels and quite a lot off my toes. They were very unsuitable footwear. It won't happen again. My feet are absolutely wrecked. But they're at least now comfortable as long as I'm not wearing those boots again. I do have to go out this afternoon at some point, so I'm going to have to put shoes and socks on again. But I'll put plasters around it. But anyway, Duke Vengeance, I have a great idea. Let's get rid of the Tories so these problems don't happen. I'm a genius. Yes, but unfortunately, Rishi Sunak is insisting that nobody wants a general election. And of course, we do have to accept the fact that even that there is a possibility of an early general election is only because, unlike a lot of countries in the world, like most advanced economies, we don't have fixed terms. Even though we had a Fixed Terms Parliament Act, it didn't fix the terms. So there is no fixed terms in this country. So that's why, you know, when we get to a situation like this, a lot of the public will say, well, there's a petition flying around calling for an immediate general election, which is going to be debated. It's over 250,000, what do you call it now? Signatures now. Let me see if I can find it quickly. It has slowed down a lot. Yeah, I can find it. It's here, look. I'll put it in the comments below in case anyone who is based in the UK has not signed it, because it'll be hilarious. It's on 258,576 signatures. So when this is debated in Parliament, it's quite likely that it will be put... Rishi Sunak won't be there, by the way. There'll be hardly any Tories at that debate. But when it is debated, I think people are going to make something of the fact that... It's not that Rishi Sunak said there isn't a majority in favour of a general election, which is also untrue. He said specifically, nobody wants a general election right now. Well, it's like there's over 250,000 people not only want one, they've gone to the trouble of signing a House of Commons petition to make MPs debate the fact. Oh, yes, I've just seen your signature come up. So anyway, it's a 4-year fix with PR, please. With PR, yes. I'd be happy for fixed terms. I'm not actually a fan of fixed terms parliament under our current system, because I think you need... Because imagine a situation if we had constitutionally fixed terms, right? There was no way of having an early election. Imagine what would have happened last summer. The Tory party could have completely melted down. You think, well, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Not if they still have to be in government, if there's no way to trigger an early election. We have to have that in our current system as a pressure valve. Whereas if you had proportional representation, like one party melting down just means you make a new coalition, right? So, with proportional representation, you could get away with fixed terms. I think first past the post is too risky. We could have a general election every other year, basically. We could. Nothing to stop us having one every 6 months if we're really crazy. But people might get a bit pissed off with that. He's saying, Starmer's approach to law and order does cause me concern. The focus on suppressing rather than resolving antisocial behaviour sounds very much like broken windows theory. When you say focus, you may mean in the mainstream media. Labour are very much talking, as they did when they were in power last time, about the causes of crime as well. Where I have an issue with Labour is not in tackling crime, because they do put the focus on the root causes of crime. Where I have an issue with Labour is the prison system is still this lock 'em up attitude instead of rehabilitate. And when Labour talk about rehabilitation, they just mean, well, we'll put on some classes, get them some GCSEs. It's like, no. A proper environment that doesn't wreck your mental health and that actually rehabilitates them emotionally, not just gives them a few it's the qualifications is the problem. They can't get a job. No, it's because their head's wrecked. Well, not in all cases, it depends on the different cases. But there we go. Jup saying, we have PR and we also had early elections. Phils, who's we? Sorry. I'm going to have to wait a minute for you to be able to say now, aren't I? How many signatures? It says 258,584. So it seems to have gone up by like 7 or 8. It does tick up every now and then. I mean, it's like in the morning now. Probably not quite so many people sharing it on social media as we're doing. I'll have to do a bit more again. What was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, so here's another thing to say as well. Now, I'm going to take you back to April regarding this prison thing, right? I'm going to take you back to April. Now, Labour did a thing in, was it April? No, it was either end of April or basically for the local elections. Labour did a thing just before the local elections. I can't remember if it was the end of April or early May. And it got a lot of flack, including from me. Do you remember their attack ads? Right, their attack ads. And I said the first one was actually out of order. Now, it gained traction. It gained a lot of, which meant that the second one was a bit iffy. I can't remember what the second one was, but I remember thinking the second one was a bit iffy. And then the others were absolutely fine. There was no issue with them at all. But they knew what they were doing. They brought out the first one because it would be really sensational and it would get a lot of attention. And then that would help them lead into their other ones. I'm going to bring it back. So this is the Daily Express front page above me, by the way. As I say, not quite true. And in fact, if you read their article, it's like a classic Daily Express headline. So you read the article and it's not what the headline says. So outrage over order not to jail rapists as prisons are full. They are going to be jailed. It's going to be deferred. So in their article, they actually report the facts, just not in the headline. But anyway, that attack ad next to it. Do you think adults convicted of sexually assaulting children should go to prison? Rishi Sunak doesn't. I'll tell you what, if Labour brought that out again now, it'd be hard for him to complain. Because at the end of the day, so let us say last week or the week before, whatever, but let's say someone has just been convicted of sexually assaulting a child and they're due for sentencing today. The judge cannot sentence them to prison. Now, that's not to say they're not going to go to prison, as I said, but as of today, that judge has to tell that person they can carry on walking the streets. That is a fact. You know, that's a way of spinning it, but that is factual. The judge sentencing someone convicted of sexually assaulting a child today has to let them walk the streets this week until ministers arrange for the early release of existing prisoners to make room in the broom cupboard for someone who has been convicted of such a crime and is in need of sentencing. That is a fact. So if Labour sort of brought out that attack ad again just to say, we told you so, although they'd have to modify it for slightly different reasons, because that attack ad at the time was, you know, out of order. Now they could get away with it. Let's get rid of that. Go through some more comments. How about no elections? We just flip right to left and vice versa every 5 years. Yeah, we might end up getting nothing done then, which is very much what happens, actually, thinking about it. Do I think the SNP jumper wants to replace Douglas Ross as leader? No, I don't know what they've done it for. It's complete madness. As soon as there's a general election, they're gone. If you look at the seat, I've forgotten which seat it is now, but I had a quick look. The Conservatives are not... There is a bit of talk at the moment, ironically, that the Conservatives could actually gain seats in Scotland. Sounds mad. But the reason is, the SNP have gone down in the polls compared to 2019, which means some seats that they have are at risk. And the focus, of course, is on the seats that are going to be between Labour and the SNP. But there's the odd seat that the SNP have already taken from the Conservatives that the Conservatives may be able to take back. Or it might be that Labour can take them. Who knows? I don't know. So there is talk of maybe the Conservatives could eye up winning a couple of Scottish seats back. But this isn't one of them. This particular seat, I had a quick look as it was breaking. I was a minute late streaming this because I was looking it up and I've forgotten where it is now. The Conservatives are not winning it. So whoever has this person, I've forgotten her name. This person who has defected to, I've completely lost it. Oh, here it is. Dr. Lisa Cameron, it's East Kilbride, Strathaven and Lesmer Hagow. I probably pronounced that wrong. Lesmer Hagow? I don't know. Sorry, I don't know where that is. I know where East Kilbride is. I imagine it's next to it. So, yeah, she says she's quit because of a toxic and bullying culture in the party's Westminster group. So she's not attacking the SNP in general. She's attacking the Westminster Party, which is still bad enough. But then I thought to myself, because so the obvious response is to join the Conservatives. Why wouldn't she just become an independent? Why would you join the Conservatives? Oh yeah, that's a famous anti-bullying party, isn't it? And she, as I say, it's not like it's tactical. Unless she thinks she can be made the Conservative candidate for a different seat that they do have a chance in. Maybe that's it. But her current seat, if she fights that for the Conservatives, she's losing it. Gone. Forget it. But anyway. Plumdove saying, here, Phil, when Labour win, I hope you're going to carry on broadcasting. Of course, I'll absolutely carry on. I will actually say, so for those who watched the first of our Fringe events in Liverpool, I didn't actually correct her. So I said in that thing, that I had always imagined when I do the thing that things might wind down when politics normalizes. And Marina took that, she was commenting on that, and she took that to mean when Labour get into power. I didn't actually, because there was a bit of a discussion I completely forgot then. I didn't want to interrupt her at the time. I don't think politics is going to normalise when Labour win the election. That's not what normalises politics. Labour being in government. Politics will still be wrecked. What will normalise politics is when the Conservatives broke our politics, right? It's when the Conservatives decide to take politics seriously. So in order for politics to normalise, and it may be that it's impossible to normalise it without proportional representation, but in order to normalise it, what has to happen is Labour have to be competent enough to make it impossible for the Conservatives to win an election, even under the current system, without taking politics seriously again. At which point the Conservatives will have to start to play the game properly, at which point our politics will then re-normalise. Now, it might get wrecked again 10 years later, but that's what I think. It's, politics doesn't calm down just because Labour win. Granted, there'll be people who watch my channel because I'm having a pop at the government, and when Labour in power, that will probably happen less often. At the moment, it happens twice a day. I don't think it's going to happen twice a day when Labour in power, if I'm honest. I'm effectively going to be spending most of my moaning energy at what will be at the time the opposition. So there will still be potentially, we'll see what happens. But I'm certainly not intending on stopping broadcasting. My goodness me. But anyway. We shall build an underwater prison. Oh my God. Could you imagine if they work out they can use that barge? I think I couldn't, could they? I don't know. The Tories will use all the unused cruise ships. I mean, there was a right-wing nut job on Twitter today going about, oh, how come we can put all these immigrants in these hotels and we can't find room for prisoners? And I just had to say, is he advocating for convicted rapists to be put in hotels? But anyway. Oh, Robert's saying she's been deselected, so she jumped. Ah, I didn't know that. Oh, well, that makes sense now. So, okay. All I've seen is literally it was breaking news as we came on, and all it was is she's defected to the Conservatives. I didn't know she'd been deselected. So I'm going to have to find out more about this now. But there we go. It was visible that you disagree with Marina, but didn't want to interrupt. Yeah, you don't interrupt people. But it doesn't matter anyway. It's like, it's subjective when you think politics is normalised again anyway. Some people may feel that politics will be in a better place just by Labour being in government. But I will say no. Because what's reported in the media doesn't change depending on who's in government. The way they report it will, but what is reported isn't. They will still decide what should be reported. I was actually genuinely surprised today that there was mention of this prison scandal on the front pages. I thought the Tory media would try and hush it up. And it's like, there's obviously the humanitarian disaster in Israel and occupied Palestine to take them up. I mean, it's on the Daily Telegraph, that. But then they've also got room on their front page for don't send criminals to prison next week, judges are told. The Daily Express, it is the main thing on the Daily Express. I was surprised about that. Because there's no way, I mean, this is attack on the government. This is ministers responsible for this. The Daily Mail doesn't have anything about the prisons thing. That's much more normal. The Times, it's, Israel is their main story on the front page, but it does have the rapists will go free as judges are told that prisons are full. The Metro is just about Israel and Palestine. Financial Times is about that, plus Labour's £28 billion green spend pledge. So Labour are back on with that again because they've now said they're prepared to borrow for it if necessary because it is investment. So that's back on. The Eye, Israel and Palestine again. The Guardian, Israel again. In fact, The Guardian is just Israel. The Mirror is also that, as well as something about Rod Stewart somehow. And then The Sun is about the family of Captain Tom, because, you know, the Sun. And the Daily Star, the only place that actually puts real news, is saying the Matrix may be real. So there you go. But there it is. That is the rundown of the big domestic news story. Although do bear in mind things like the COVID inquiries going on. That's getting a bit spicy. There's actually a lot happening right now. There's a lot happening. But thanks very much, everyone. Don't forget to have clicked the like button if you have not already, and subscribe to the channel, and check out the description below if you want to join Patreon for the channel. And have a very good day, everyone. And until next time, I will see you later.